Hello, welcome to an episode of Forgotten Cemeteries, Pacific Northwest. It's 30 degrees, it's really cold and icy this morning, but we're in Middleton Pioneer Cemetery. It's located in Middleton or Sherwood, I wasn't really sure, but it is in Oregon, Washington County. Alternative names to the cemetery, none that I could find. We do have a potter's field here as well, so I guess we'll see that during the tour. So let's go meet some of the local residents and hear their story. Alright, a little history about this cemetery. It was established in 1871, so a little late for our taste. There's an estimated 500 burials per the Oregon Burial Site Guide. Find a grave is shown 467 memorials to give you an idea. Apparently this area used to be known as a string town. String towns were popular slang back in Oregon back in the day because they were strung out along a road or highway. Not much history-wise for this one, as mentioned, and there is a lot of apartment complex approaching this cemetery. Seems to be a symptom of the old pioneer cemeteries. I did see that they hold a volunteer annual cleanup around Memorial Day for this cemetery, so still active, still being taken care of, so that's good to see. Yeah, just couldn't find much other than that, but hopefully we'll find some interesting stories in this cemetery and the headstones I want to find. Okay, I think this is the headstone of J.P. Buffington. At least the find a grave picture matched it. And to the left, there is the daughter of a J.P. and M.A. Buffington. So we're looking for J.P. Buffington, born in 1811 in Virginia. I believe his first name is Jonathan, and all roads were leading to him being a Civil War vet as well. He enlisted in Company G of the 119th PA Infantry, I think. Only because when I look up the roster for the 119th, I see a J.M. Buffington enlisted in August of 1862 and being discharged in 1862 in December under a surgeon's certificate. So perhaps he was wounded in battle. I wasn't really sure. It was kind of a mystery grave. But you will see his wife on his pension file, M.A. Buffington, and based on Find a Grave, they appear to be listed under the same headstone. But as you can see on this headstone, kind of broken and forgotten in time. I don't see the other half of it, so someone must have documented it at one time. Here's the headstone of Roy Chapman, born in 1878, and you can see the marking USMC. I don't know if we've seen that yet, but I'm assuming that he died in the Spanish-American War since it took place in 1898. I honestly couldn't find any records of him or how he died, no matter what source, because he did die on August 8th, 1898. But on August 12th, literally 4 days later, the U.S. and Spain signed the Protocol of Peace, ending the hostility toward each other. So I don't know, maybe he got a disease, and there's a lot of diseases going on during that time in that war, I believe, during the Spanish-American War from what I read. So maybe Roy was killed in battle somehow, or just a big part of the deaths during this time was diseases, as mentioned. He was only 20 years old at the time. A rare find on a headstone. Don't think we've seen it yet, but Frank here was born on the Oregon Trail during the big immigration year of 1852. His father landed in Middleton and was a blacksmith and a wagon maker by trade. So, cool find. Alright, and the headstone that's in really good shape and taken care of apparently. It belongs to John Winters. Born in 1830 in Farmson, Germany. I believe Prusa was listed. He is a pioneer of 1852 and also served in Company E of the 1st Infantry for the USA during the Mexican War. John was a coppersmith by trade, and we're seeing the 3 rings indicating a member of the Independent Order of the Oddfellows. Typically, FLT may be seen, or the 3 rings, and once again, that represents friendship, love, and truth. This may be one of the more impressive headstones I've seen as far as glossiness and shape and size. So I guess we'll see during the tour as well. But it belongs to Martin Betchell, born in 1837, and I want to say this is our 2nd or 3rd Civil War musician in our travels. I think the other one was at Arcade Cemetery, and I swear there was another one. But Martin here was enlisted in Company C of the Illinois 20th Infantry. He would be promoted to sergeant at one point, though, as well. The 20th appeared to be a pretty strong unit overall, helping take Fort Donelson at one point. And here's another Civil War vet. This would be Jasper Reid, born in Ohio in 1844, and another Civil War veteran. He's got a couple listings as far as militias. He was in Company G of the 3rd Missouri State Militia Cavalry, and Company B and Company K of the 7th Missouri State Militia Cavalry, so must have got around and transferred a lot. And I actually came across the flag for the 7th specifically, and their nickname was the Black Hawk Cavalry. They did take part in the Battle of Van Buren, kind of like a small conflict that only had one death listed, but it also turned northwest Arkansas into no man's land, ending the Confederate occupation in that area. Probably the most interesting story linked to Benjamin F. Dewey here. Now we're seeing our normal military style headstone here. That's because Benjamin served in Company 3 of the 6th Missouri Infantry for the Union side. A very massive list of engagements for this company. It's quite the list, but a strange story I came across during my research was that of James Blood, who was a colonial commander of the 6th. At the time, James was married, and an interesting woman named Victoria Cloughan Woodhull, who classified herself as a spiritualistic physician in St. Louis, did like a reading on him. I don't know if it was like a palm reading or one of those psychic readings, something along those lines. But apparently Victoria predicted their marriage, and right on the spot, James proposed marriage. She accepted, and she was also married at the time as well. So they both got divorced and left St. Louis in 1865 and headed to New York in 1867. Victoria, at some point, denounced his spirituality. She was like, screw that stuff. And I think she did it to regain her reputation for something that made her what she was. So it was a little confusing. So she abandons James Blood at one point. And he's quoted as saying, "The grandest woman in the world went back on me." They would divorce a year later. But fear not, James would marry a third time to a woman named Isabel Morrill. Shortly after, James is assigned to the Gold Coast of Africa to superintend a gold mine. He would strike gold, but shortly after, he died of a mysterious heart disease. So, real sad ending to that guy. Alright, I think we'll do two stories on this. We'll do a different angle, but we're first going to talk about William Vincent. Born in 1852 in Ohio and died at the young age of 40, unfortunately. Vincent was actually an owner of a sawmill, from my readings, named Vincent Sawmill. Had a wife named Emmeline Pether, and had around 9 kids with her. One day, William noticed while performing preventative maintenance on a piece of equipment that a piece of bark was lodged in one of the saws. He would slip and his right arm would be severed at the elbow when he tried to remove it. He called over to his men for his aid, but I guess they led him back home. The article made it sound like they should have laid him down and lit the stump with fire, sort of cauterize it. I'm guessing to basically cauterize the wound to stop the bleeding. If you ever seen Rambo 3, you know what I mean. I'm a big Rambo fan, and there's a famous scene in that movie that's pretty badass. But anyways, cauterization actually goes back to ancient Greek times to control hemorrhaging of wounds. Leonidas of Alexandria, Egypt, described the technique when removing breast tumors, actually. Sadly, Leonidas would be beheaded in the year 202. I guess they would commonly use hot blades or just any old piece of metal to cauterize. Luckily today we have more sophisticated tools, such as the one in the picture. Anywho, the men who assisted William led him to his house, and the loss of blood was pretty substantial. The surgeon would try to do what he could, but William would die 11 hours after the incident, sadly. Okay, same headstone, same couple. We're looking at Emmeline Vincent, William's wife, and a pretty difficult life full of loss. As we learned, she lost her husband and was responsible for 9 children on her own during his death. But let's rewind a little bit. Emmeline was born in 1857 in Minnesota. Her mother, though, would die from typhoid fever when Emmeline was only 9 months old, so she never got to know her. A cool write-up in her biography was that she remembered when she was little, colorful Indian caravans traveling by her father's drug business, since he was a doctor in the area. I guess the Indians would stop by her father's store and request fire water. Her family overall were late arrivals to Oregon, coming in 1874, but not without issue, of course. Emmeline's father bought a wagon, oxen, basically everything you need to make the trip, but his daughter-in-law died, leaving an infant. Concerns grew that the trip would be too hard on the baby, so they took a train to San Francisco, and then a steamer to Astoria, Oregon. So not a travel style we've seen before on this channel. Emmeline would get a teaching position and planned to get more educational training, but decided to marry a childhood friend named William, obviously on the right. And unfortunately, we saw that he met an early end to his life. And during that time, Emmeline was left to raise 9 children on her own. Not exactly doable, but her 2 oldest sons would step in and help work to support the family. But Emmeline couldn't catch a break, as her oldest son, Caldy Vincent, would meet the same fate as her husband. He was working at a small sawmill in California. One day a cable broke and struck him in the head. Killed him. I'm sure it was under some extreme tension, so when it let loose, it let loose. It killed him instantly, and his remains were shipped back to Middleton, and he was buried in the cemetery, actually. I did read she had 2 more sons die, but couldn't find much information. But I did read one of her sons died in 1947 from, you guessed it, another logging incident. Frank Vincent one day was struck in the head by a 3-inch diameter tree limb, a widowmaker, killing him. And if you'd like to learn all about widowmaker tree limbs, watch my Masonic Lafayette video. But despite all the hardships, Emmeline would never remarry and lived until the age of 89. I do see on her headstone they have 1857 to 19. It's like they forgot to put the second 2 numbers, so I don't know what's up with that. But cool story about this couple here, and sad at the same time. Hopefully you guys can see that, because I can't see anything on the camera, but sometimes it enhances things quite a bit. But it is the headstone of Ashell H. Vincent. I believe Ashell is another Civil War vet, because it appears he was drafted in 1863. Also appears he was in Minnesota at the time, and I believe I read as well that Minnesota was one of the first ones to offer up soldiers to Lincoln for the Union side during the Civil War, so maybe Ashell here was one of the very first. I also did find an old document claiming that Ashell was a postmaster in something called Leisure, Minnesota. And on the left, I hope you can see it, we have Private O. Johnson as listed on Find a Grave. Double profile on Find a Grave, FYI, but limited info on him, but I did find him on Ancestry.com. First name is Oramel, and he was born in Vermont in 1846, enlisted in the Union Army in 1863 under Company L of the 1st HA Artillery, but he would transfer to Company C at one point. On June 1st, 1864, it appears Oramel would be wounded in battle, specifically in the battle in Cold Harbor, Virginia. We talked about this before, but the Battle of Cold Harbor is remembered as one of America's most bloodiest lopsided battles. Robert E. Lee really did a number on the Union side during this fight, as he had fortified position and took out thousands of Union soldiers. I believe I read it was around 13,000 lost on the Union side during that time. But it appears Oramel fought and was wounded in that fight. However, he survived, luckily. His wife Mary is listed next to him, and I believe they had a child named Sadie who was buried at the cemetery as well. And here's the headstone of Mary Sophia Peters Reitz. Unique find, as she was born in something called Pomerania in 1849. It's a historic region on the southern shore of the Baltic Sea and is split between Poland and Germany. Mary is listed as being born in Germany, though. Did try to find a city pic, but this little jerk kept coming up, those little yappy dogs. But Mary would come to the USA in 1857 with her parents and marry Michael on the same headstone to the left here in 1866. She would be around 16 years old at the time when she got married. And here is the headstone of Mary Jane Brickley. I have to kind of clear off her headstone because the leaves are kind of burying them around here. But she was born in 1821 in Clearview County, PA, and as you can see, lived until the age of 105 years old. She didn't go to Hillsboro, Oregon until 1890, so pretty late arrival. She must have lived in Montana at one time because her husband is listed as being buried in something called Court Cemetery in Montana. So if we have any Montana viewers, please visit that one for us and let us know. The picture looks beautiful. So, thought we'd go down a little trip of memory lane here, since Mary saw quite a bit during her life. She was born in 1821, the year of the death of Napoleon. In 1828, King Shaka of the Zulu would be assassinated by his 2 half-brothers, as one would take his place. How convenient. In 1837, Oberlin College became the first to enroll women as degree students. In 1843, a popular book called A Christmas Carol would be published. Christmas is about a week or 2 away, so you better get your Christmas shopping done. In 1848, gold was discovered on the property of John Sutter in California, launching the gold rush. In 1853, the hypodermic syringe with a plunger was developed simultaneously in France and Scotland. 1861 hits, and shots are fired upon the federal military garrison, Fort Sumter, launching the American Civil War. In 1869, the first professional baseball team was formed in Cincinnati. The first human voice was recorded in 1877 by Thomas Edison. In 1882, the world's largest elephant, Jumbo, debuted for Barnum and Bailey Circus. In 1888, a murderer strikes fear into London, slitting the throats of prostitutes. The public comes to know them as Jack the Ripper. 1896 displays the first modern Olympic Games, which are held in Athens. Frank Baum writes The Wizard of Oz in the year 1900. In 1908, the first Model T Ford rolls off the production line in Detroit. the Titanic would take its first launch in 1911. 3 years later, World War I starts, and in 1915, Winston Churchill likes the idea of a new invention called the tank. In 1918, Britain decided to allow their women to vote, but only if they were over age 30. That's kind of weird. In 1920, there was a man by the name of Adolf Hitler, who was one of the leading members of the German Workers' Party. They changed their name to the Nazis at one point. And in the final year of Mary's life, Franklin D. Roosevelt is struck from the waist down with something called polio. So yeah, you could say Mary got to see quite a bit of history during her run. This wasn't in my notes, but this appears to be an infant's child. We've seen this before, where we have the Lamb of God, I believe. And only 2 years old is Willie Prather, but you can see what looks like a Woodsman of the World marker. Alrighty, time for the tour. Plenty of parking in this one. Very quiet too. Overall, not a whole lot going on in the area. I think there's like a school close, and a pretty fancy neighborhood as well. But quiet overall. Got a big memorial here. Yeah, pretty wet, watery day. I guess it snowed last night in Oregon, so everyone's panicking. I grew up in Ohio, so I have no problem with snow driving, but out here they like freak out about it. It's weird. Shoalin, that's a tough one. Didn't really see vandalism here. I think I saw one base with a headstone missing. Then earlier we saw that one headstone that was cracked in half. I didn't see the other half of it though. Interesting one. Pretty recent. This memorial. Who's down here way in the bushes by himself? I don't know what that stands for. A. That's a lot marker. Reid. Nothing that sticks out. A lot of war veterans here as well. And you can see here, that's World War II. Classic marble style looking military headstone. That's World War II as well. Overall, I'd say it's pretty mixed. There's not like a certain pioneer section, if you will. Kind of like someone next to them could be from 2000, and then the one next to them can be from like 1870s or something. So, no order. Just wherever you want to be buried, you're going there. So. I got excited because it's Christmas time. I thought that said McAllister, but it's McAllister. Is there an R there? Oh, yeah, there is. McAllister. Close. Kevin McAllister, which which if you haven't seen the movie Home Alone, I'm not sure where you grew up. So, good Christmas movie. Maybe one of the best, I don't know. Be between that and Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase. Yeah, like here's one that may have been vandalized, I'm not really sure. It's missing something from the top. There's like a little creek that runs past down there. So it's a very pretty scenery out here. I believe the cemetery is along old Highway 99 West. And out there in the distance, I'm sure you can hear it, is the new 99 West. Over here would be the Potter's Field. Basically the unknowns, or ones too poor, from my understanding, to afford a headstone or a burial. So I'm not sure if it's like the woods is part of it, or just this little zone right here, if you will, because just a few feet you start running into headstones. I guess it helps if I look at a cemetery map. Here's World War I. So pretty good mix of war veterans here as far as Civil War, World War I, World War II. I think we had the Mexican-American War was in there that we talked about earlier. And there's Dewey. Really epic tree in the middle of the cemetery. And that's a pretty memorial for an infant, Zoe Grace. Interesting name. Plus a nice little park bench, so you can chill out. Get away from the world, as usual, like I always say. What the heck is that thing? A little statue of something. I don't know. Cute. Some older individuals here, and I just couldn't find anything on them. But there's a really pretty headstone here I noticed with the anchor. I don't know if that means Navy. There's something written there, but I can't tell what it is. But a very pretty headstone for a Melvin E. Chase. That's how you say it. That one's pretty too. True, I see that name quite a bit here. Seems popular. Looks like there used to be something there. I'm not sure. Used to be another military headstone, yeah. Olds was another one, and Winters, as far as last names. Harrington. That's an old birth date of 1817. There is a plumbing store around here, I believe, called Harrington Plastics. So maybe they started it. Not really sure. I don't see anything on that little slab. Who we got in the back all by themselves. Well, 2 headstones, 3 headstones. Barrett, another Barrett. Chandler. There's that monster of a headstone. It's gigantic. Betchell, Martin, we talked about him. You see on top it says Civil War veteran. But, big hunk of rock. This is. There's a couple names on there. Holbert. I think there was a young football player over here. Yeah, I didn't see a name though, but pretty beautiful memorial here with flowers and picture of the individual. I like that one. It's very festive. I always feel bad when I see the young deaths in the cemetery. He's way over here by themselves. Quite a distance from everyone else, actually. Looks like a war vet. It is of Nicholas Severson Sr., U.S. Army. Interesting last names as well. Look at this one. That can't be a real last name, right? Look at that. Schwalten Brand. Wow. Oh, born around the Civil War, 1865. That might be one of the more unique ones that we've seen. But it's kind of the end of the tour. It's kind of your basic cemetery, nothing too crazy, but had some fun stories. I hope you enjoyed them. If you have any other recommendations for cemeteries to visit in Oregon or even southern Washington, feel free to comment below. Hope you guys are doing all right, and stay safe out there. Hope you enjoyed the vid.